Hey, Jules Blessed Vegan, and as always, welcome to my channel. And for those of you who are new, I know you can benefit. So, I want to talk about why weight loss surgery is often not successful and why it's not necessarily the answer. And I know this isn't true for so many people on here, and it's really for the people who suffer from severe obesity, to the point of where they're measuring whether or not the health problems of obesity outweigh the potential problems of choosing to have weight loss surgery, right? And for me, I never really considered weight loss surgery. Maybe one time when I was in the 300s, but it scared me to death. The idea just scared me to death. I mean, when I realized that they reduce your stomach, down to like the size of your thumb initially, where you're vomiting if you overeat more than 3 ounces of food. For me, that seemed like a living hell in prison, like literally being in prison in my body. It scared me to death. So that wasn't going to be an option for me. I was going to have to own my obesity and either just stay super fat or figure out a better way. And of course, praise God, my better way has been a plant-based vegan diet and raw vegan in particular. So I thank God to no end for that. But I was kind of looking at some of the stats here for those of you who have considered weight loss surgery and may still be considering it. I just want to say that in my experience, it is not a cure-all. I have had two friends who were successful. They had it, they were disciplined, they were ready, they lost the weight, and they've kept the weight off. I've had about 6 friends who slowly gained that weight back strategically, meaning they pushed every boundary they could. They went through the vomiting, they went through the discomfort, they re-stretched their stomach, if you will. And I know there's different ones now. There's bariatric surgery. There's just the sleeve, which apparently can be removed if it needs to be. There's like a lot of different kinds that they have right now. But I was looking at the statistics, and it basically says that less than 1% of people die within the first 30 days after surgery. If that feels like a good statistic, yay. But 1% is 1% too many for me. And then it says that within the first 5 years, about 6% of people die. So to give you a perspective, in this particular study, which was from the Journal of American Medical Association, JAMA, right? It said that 440 deaths, 440 deaths after 16,000 operations, okay? So that's 2.6% respectively. And it said that the age-specific death rates were much higher in men than in women and tended to increase with age. Age and sex-specific death rates after bariatric surgery were substantially higher than comparable rates for the age and sex matched in this particular population. So the reason that most people ended up dying were everything from cardiac arrest, and let's be fair, they were already extremely obese, right? One of my friends was only about 300 pounds, which for me, I was like, I mean, yeah, you're obese, but only 300 is not like my 600-pound life, right? But some of these people, because they already had so many ailments to begin with, it was a huge risk anyway, and they knew it. And so some of them simply succumbed to the illnesses that were already in their body. Sadly, a large percentage of those who died from suicide. That's that fear I had of being trapped in a prison in my own body, right? I like the freedom of being able to falter if I need to. I would be scared to death. I've had pain. So like in the last, let's say 2 years, and it's about almost 2.5 years that I've even been aware of vegan, raw vegan, plant-based vegan. I'm living a different way. I have over-challenged my body, if you will, a couple of times. And it was the most painful experience I've ever had. I remember just shortly after I started eating this clean way, I decided that I'd only been clean a couple months. I mean, I could have a hamburger and fries, My body trying to digest hamburger meat, oh my gosh, like so painful. And another time, I decided that I could have just a bunch of fries, fried in oil, salt and oil. Oh my gosh. I thought I was going to have to go to the hospital. I'm not even kidding you. The pain was so unreal. So I can imagine in a very tiny, sliced down stomach to dare to challenge that stomach. Yeah, you'll throw up what you can and have no choice. It'll come up automatically. But the amount of pain as your body desperately decides where to distribute and what to do with the nonsense you just put in it, I don't wish that on anyone. So, sadly, many of those deaths were suicide. And again, that depression and fear and everything was already in play. And they were hoping the solution would be weight loss surgery. The second most common reason was drug overdose, a drug overdose. And was that already in place? I don't know. Was someone so afraid they'd start gaining their weight back that they started to take weight loss drugs? Maybe. It's just so unfortunate. So, what is the bottom line? I'm glad you asked. This one, the conclusion for this study, which I'll include as part of the description of the video, says there was a substantial excess of deaths owing to suicide and coronary heart disease. Careful monitoring of bariatric surgical procedures and more intense follow-up could likely reduce the long-term case fatality rate in this patient population. I'm just so sorry. I'm so sorry. I mean, we were just talking about, the burden they were putting on thin people, right? To say, hey, thin people, you owe society a conversation. You owe society acceptance. Well, hi, obese, morbidly obese people. And I still fall into, I'm not quite the morbidly obese right now. I'm for sure maybe what they call grossly obese. I know what you're thinking. It's coming to me. How can someone that hot looking be in any way morbidly obese or grossly obese? Thanks so much, tear. I'm so bad, I know. Okay, anyway, that's what's going down on here for bariatric surgery, which is where they literally cut and reduce part of the stomach. Okay, and this is just pure statistics. Oh my gosh. The Journal of American Medical Association. Okay, but this was the other one that I wanted to talk about. And this is different than a gastric sleeve, which again is something where they literally place it over the tubing of the stomach and don't allow that part to inflate, right? But it's something that's supposed to be removed. I don't know that much about it. But I do want to share this one. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's this one. Why we hear so many stories. Why we hear so many stories of failed bariatric surgery. And again, you may not know this, but you may have a person in your life. I remember when I was a little girl, my father's secretary, and he was an administrator for Los Angeles Unified, and she was a very heavy-set woman. And my gosh, this was years and years ago. I mean, 40 years ago. 50 years ago. I don't even know. I was a little kid a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. But she ended up getting weight loss surgery. It was a total nightmare in terms of the effect on the body. It's just so incredibly hard. And back then it was much harder than it is now, and there was a huge recovery time and everything else. And she very carefully gained back every pound and more as she stretched her stomach. She wasn't ready. If you're doing a cure-all, like surgery, without any curing of your mental mindset, the chances that you will go back to those tools which seemingly got you through the harder parts of your life is pretty much inevitable. So this says bariatric surgery is on the rise. So true. Oh my gosh, like people do it. I couldn't believe it. I was reading an article on knee surgery, hip surgery. It was like driving through McDonald's. I mean, they acted like it was no big deal. It was just like going through a drive-through and getting parts replaced. Astounding. Almost like just removing your gallbladder for any reason at all. These are becoming really common procedures, and shows like my 600 pound life, kind of in a way encourage, but I think those shows are very honest in depicting the struggle. I really do. So I think it's a little different than that. But people always have this margin of error where they say, well, that won't be my story. Well, I don't care what happened to them because I'm different. Well, I know that happened to them, but you know what you are? A human in an organic body that wasn't designed for that. That's what you are. So unless that's the next thing coming out of your mouth, you're not all that, let's just say. Okay, so this is bariatric surgery is on the rise and becoming more commonplace than ever. No longer is it an underground procedure related to the whispers of shame, secrecy being the easy way out or a sign of weakness. Shows like My 600-Pound Life and Big Medicine continue to normalize the experience, and thankfully they document just how hard it is, I agree, to endure and recover from, and that the surgery is no cure-all. I agree, but again, there's those people saying, I don't care how hard it was for them, I'm different. There's a lot of people going to Mexico, and in fact, one of the ads right here said, $4.99 down, come to Mexico. Sadly, when someone dies as a result of going to Mexico, and no offense to Mexico, they have great medical and everything else, but the people who tend to put these ads out aren't those great medical. Okay, they tend to be back alley nightmares who, prey on the fear of people and the almighty dollar, saying, look how cheap it is. Well, cheap enough to risk your life, cheap enough to have permanent damage, because this is going on. I live on the border of Mexico. I'm in California, right? So we hear these horror stories all the time. Anyway, as we see in these shows and other weight loss surgery documentaries, the procedure is often completely undone by, let's hear this part. Let's take this in. The procedure, so getting your stomach chopped and done and supposedly fixed, is completely undone, negated, failed by inadequate, and sometimes completely non-existent. This is that Mexico, number no longer in service, no follow-up support. Completely non-existent effort by the medical team to get patients to address the psychological issues often so intertwined with the development of disordered eating behaviors and poor health choices. Amen. The lack of psychological education is where patients learn to blame themselves for poor outcomes, health crisis, development of new or worsening eating disorders, substance abuse issues, and other forms of self-harm. Just like anyone who has ever tried to diet and failed to lose significant weight, or lost and gained it all back time and time again, plus additional pounds, the person labels themselves a failure and falls victim to shame and guilt over and over again. The result is further descent into the physical and mental illness. I completely agree. This doesn't have to be the case. Let's look at why surgery is often a failure and not the person. I've made that mistake my whole life. I've called myself a blew it. I've called myself an idiot. I've called myself, instead of saying whatever it was a struggle. That's weird. I didn't expect that file drawer to be open. Okay. It's estimated that several 100,000 individuals in the U.S. will have one of the 3 common bariatric surgeries. So they all fall under the definition of bariatric. One is gastric bypass. That's where they actually cut you up and reduce your stomach to almost nothing. 2 is the gastric sleeve, which is where they literally slide like a tube, not allowing the stomach to inflate, and it's removable, I believe. Or the lap band surgery. And those might be really close. I'm not a professional. You think, Jules? We didn't notice. You sounded so intelligent. Yeah. Typically, the surgical candidate is between the ages of 20 and 65 with a body mass index over 40. I've been there. I've been to over 40. There is typically at least one physical comorbidity which might be diabetes, hypertension, sleep apnea, GERD, hyperlipidemia, osteoarthritis, which is inevitable. I mean, the heavier you are, the less your body can cope and the more dis-ease arrives, right? The surgery is as popular as it is because it is the only proven form of sustained weight loss, as evidenced by about 90% of patients keeping off at least 50% of their weight after 2 years. Okay, so I'm in a support group for people who struggle with food and weight. I'll just put it that way. And I am hearing the panic attacks in their left and right saying, I even had bariatric surgery and I've put on a third of the weight, 50% of the weight, 75% of the weight. I'm so afraid I'll gain it all back. I gained it all back and more. Do I know if it's been 2 years? Maybe. But still. And I think that's only because you're upchucking and scared to death for the first year, and then learning your way on how to manipulate and eat the second year, and finally you're thriving by the third year. It also appears that many will find reduction or elimination in those physical comorbidities. Of course, you lose some weight, blood pressure goes down. You lose some weight, your diabetes numbers are improved. Many find psychological improvement as well, as they regain mobility, energy, and confidence to engage in daily activities that they once struggled with. Initially, no doubt. That is a thrill. Even me, I've talked to you guys, like my fear of being afraid that when I get down on the floor to pick something up, I can't get back up. And then me realizing, well, wait a second, you're over 100 pounds lighter. You probably can get back up. And it may not be pretty, but I can. I'm starting to actually run on the track. It feels really good. I feel hopeful to some degree. And then I get smacked across the face when I falter and go down that dark rabbit hole, which happens too often. I mean, I'm so sorry. Okay, so it says, but these results for many are not long lasting, and here's why. Up to 66% of bariatric patients have a psychological diagnosis, such as depression, bipolar, anxiety, substance abuse, eating disorder. For many, food has been a significant, if not primary, source of comfort and self-medication for many years, a coping mechanism. I wish they would say that. Take away that, my bad, next sentence, take away that coping mechanism. Ask and you shall receive, and those emotions become overwhelming. The result is a good number of obese patients develop anorexic behaviors. I so agree. That's me in these last couple of years. And recently, as I've fallen below 200 and then gone up and down, jumping back into 200 in fear that I might actually be successful. And then, because oh my gosh, it seems to be a magic number of like hitting 207 and then down to 193, 207, 193, like I keep going back and forth, that I get into my desperate, corrupt mindset that says, well, we could throw this up. Let's throw our food up. A really old behavior and a painful one that I can't stand. How about if we starve tomorrow to make up for today? Like all the gimmicks. And then I have some lovely friends who say, Juliana, this is a lifestyle, not a diet. And it's the same thing. In my support group, a lot of people come in with a diet mentality, and everybody reminds them that it's actually a program of recovery and that you have to work on your physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, and that the food will follow. And I really appreciate that. But I get into that craziness. So becoming severely malnourished, which often goes untreated due to their continued large body size. Okay, so that just goes back to how you can actually be obese and yet be completely malnourished, because nothing that you're consuming has any nutrients in it at all, right? It's dead packaged food. And so, yeah, the body is actually starving in a way, which is really interesting. And because there's no nutrients, because there's no macro, micro, or anything, it won't register to your body that you've eaten, because it's continuing to seek out any form of food in hopes of meeting that deficit, which is a really tough one. So it says that is why we call atypical anorexia when someone has all the behaviors and psychological symptoms seen in anorexia, but is not decidedly underweight. The physical and psychological harm is identical. Others will turn to purging. I so get all of this. It's so sad. I've done it all. Now I care enough about my teeth and gums and my health in general, praise God, to not want to participate, but I so get it. Others will turn to purging, vomiting out their food, abusing laxatives. Not something I absolutely ever did, though I had many friends starting at as young as 6th grade. Because they're chocolate flavored laxatives. You guys know that, right? Mowing on laxatives. Or compulsively exercising. Been there. I have been there. And even in eating imperfectly, for which I've been struggling for like a month now, I have exercised absolutely every day and exceeded, right? I'm up in the 10,000, 12,000, 13,000 steps a day. You cannot outrun a bad diet, kid. I don't care. And by you, I mean me. So I still get this. The physical and psychological harm is identical. And then it says patients are malnourished due to limited nutritional intake. I cannot say that enough. And all these things I've learned, so much of it is from Tanny Raw. Again, a social media phenom on every health platform, who is absolutely just steadfast in her understanding of nutrition, how it serves our body, how lack of nutrition tends to make people binge prone, all those things. And I have continued to experience and live all of that in these last couple of years and overcome money. I falter occasionally, but I'm so grateful that when I falter now, I'm educated enough to know what the problem is. So those who turn to compulsive exercise are significantly in danger, as their poor nutrition from restriction and purging leads to brittle bones that fracture from the impact of most exercise, especially while someone is still of a larger size. Yeah, so like they have no nutrition. The calcium is being extracted from their bones to run other parts of the body. And in that brittleness, the chances of fracturing something are great. While the stomach may change in capacity and cravings go away after surgery, which everybody says is true initially, they have no desire to eat. That's why, they drop 60 pounds in the first month. Those cravings come back typically within 6 months. And I've seen this with a couple extended family members, I'll put it that way. And they return to abusing food. Many patients early after surgery begin to graze on food mindlessly, satisfying their cravings in small doses. When the weight loss has slowed or stopped, they bounce between restricting out of anxiety and binge eating to cope with the increased fixation on food, just like they did before the surgery. Some will gradually increase the size of their stomach pouch with ever-increasing binges. Yep, a little bit at a time, it starts to stretch again. A return to binge eating, either by regular grazing or in large quantities of food, is common. In addition, nearly a third, so 1 out of 3, of patients transfer their self-soothing behaviors to other self-harming behaviors. This is why those people are dying of secondary things like suicide and drug addiction, such as alcohol, drugs, indiscriminate sex, compulsive shopping, gambling, internet, video games, etc. No recovery has taken place. They just went down the rabbit hole of the magic cure of seemingly having surgery, and step 2, removing excess skin. So, outside they're amazing. Inside they are dying. I'm so sorry. I'm reminding myself of this. Believe me, I am. Because at a time my husband and I were in a place where we considered surgery. And luckily we're in a much better place now. But I have people ask me about this a lot. Other behaviors that some see as healthy are overindulged, such as exercise, work, hyperfixation on healthy foods, which is called orthorexia in eating disorder fields. That's super controversial, super controversial. I will never regret eating healthy food, meaning plants, fruit, etc. I do see some people, as they initially go completely plant-based, that they tend to lose a bunch of weight and they hit what should be probably their natural weight and they accidentally exceed it initially. They look way too thin, and then their body kind of balances out when they're consistent over time. But yeah, that's kind of a thing people play. Okay, many return to being people pleasers. That was a problem to begin with, taking care of friends and family before giving any time or effort for their own needs. I'm better about that, but not that much better. I still come home famished, exhausted, and still care for family, animals, everything before myself. I don't resent it anymore. I offer it up in prayer, and I'm a little bit better about making sure my food is prepped. But when I falter, it's usually because of that. I've cared for everybody about myself, and that act of kindness is served with a heaping plate of resentment, spoken or not, recognized or not. After the binge and faltering, I go, what happened? Oh yeah, you forgot to care for yourself. Oh yeah, you were caring for everyone else. Oh yeah, you felt put out. Oh yeah, the whole thing. I'm improving, praise God, but it's a process. And family, before giving time or effort to their own needs, the result is a return to the behaviors that led to their poor health to begin with. Added attention from the weight loss, oh my, this is so true, can greatly overwhelm patients. Those with social anxiety, poor self-esteem, or history of sexual or physical abuse, find they feel unsafe and often try to sabotage the weight loss. In some communities where being thin is seen as less desirable, and that's true, there's different customs and groups of people where it's less desirable. It's not exactly beautiful. Patients will also sabotage their behaviors, fearing negative attention or being perceived as sick or even a drug addict. For me, I kind of did this at 300, right? I was struggling at 300. I specifically remember getting down to 313 from 330 and down to 303 and to 293. It was literally like that, these big increments of 10 pounds at a time. When I got down, and I have done it 6 times in my adult life, where I got down to right around 200, 202, 208. I've seen the numbers clear as day. I immediately lost sight of my program and went right back up. It just felt too scary to me. I'm finally, in just the last 6 months, where I finally went down to 293 and immediately panicked. And then, of course, the pandemic hit and everything else, and it was kind of trendy to gain 15 pounds. So, just like before, 6 times I have gone back up. First it was 215, then it was 207. Every time back down to 193. Oh, what if you got into the 180s? Would all hell break loose? Like, what is the risk? And yet, somehow, there seems to be one. I will get there, but it's not as smooth as I would like. And yet I'm trying to trust God in life and my ability to grow and adjust and everything else in the process. But it's been a big deal. It really has. It's been really interesting. So I totally understand that. The sexual and physical abuse feels unsafe. In some communities is not acceptable. Nearly 1 in 5 bariatric patients will gain most of all the weight they lost, resulting in even worse self-esteem, depression, and isolation. And though it may be coming up, greater health issues. I haven't read this article. Let's see. Sadly, studies show that there is a 200% increased likelihood. Check this out. A 200% increased likelihood a bariatric patient will commit suicide compared to the general population. Why would they kill themselves? They finally got what they wanted. I mean, they really wanted that. Too much responsibility, too scary, too high of expectations, too great a fear of failure. I so get it, which is why I could never risk it. Oh my gosh, have mercy on them 1,000 times. Another study found 70% of marriages fail after bariatric surgery. Yeah, the partner was kind of used to the coziness of that person's weight, the problems that came with that person's weight. That person may be too hot now for their partner. There's so many reasons. My gosh. Another study found patients' quality of life doubled. This is the positive one, I guess. Their quality of life doubled at 6 months post-operative and doubled again even a year later. By year 2, their scores returned to baseline. The surgery doesn't eliminate those things in life that cause us to be unhappy. And when the honeymoon period is over, those things that were distressing before surgery are still there. Bariatric patients who return to eating disorder behaviors develop new ones. Again, they trade them out. They go with drugs and stuff instead of food, right? or turn to other forms of self-harm post-operatively, often struggling with negative reactions, such as uncertainty, frustration, deadlines, depressed mood, anger, anxiety, tension, boredom. What's needed is to identify the thoughts and feelings that lead to self-destructive behaviors, increase awareness of eating disorder triggers, learn how to interrupt those behaviors, tolerate stress, improve body image, learn to eat mindfully, recognize hunger and satiety cues that are often quite different from others who have not had surgery, and normalize the long conflicted relationship with food, weight, and body image. I can so relate. I haven't even had the surgery, but a bunch of these things are true for me. I'm just in losing weight. It also believed that the way to succeed at recovery is by internalizing the concept of health at every size. And that's actually a thing, HAES. Total health enhancement and well-being rather than weight loss or achieving a specific ideal weight. Self-acceptance and respect for the diversity of health, beautiful bodies rather than the pursuit of the ideal weight at all costs. The pleasure of eating well, based on internal cues of hunger and satiety, rather than an external food plan or diet. I'm trying to get there a little bit, honestly. I've been weighing and measuring food, which I hadn't done for years and had hoped would never be my truth again. But in just trying to get a reality check, because I've been binging for so many years, of what portions look like and stuff, I've been doing that for at least a year and a half. I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to be stupid about it because I don't want to trick myself or get comfortable and forget what portion size is. But that's been really hard on me. And I would like to have the freedom of just experiencing and appreciating the healthy food instead of all the gimmicks and competition and stress that goes with worrying about a certain weight, like a number on a scale, worrying about 100 calories here or 50 calories there, meaning under or over. So that's something I'm working on and praying about as I'm entering my third year, basically, of trying to be a vegan and a healthy one, plant-based. Okay, whether or not you agree with the surgery or not, it's here to stay. In the role of the eating disorder professional is to help those who are struggling to get well physically and emotionally. Is it time to get help? Damn straight for some people. Oh my goodness. Before they kill themselves. I mean, it's so sad. Oh, dear Father, peace of Christ be with you. Have mercy on this group of people. Oh my gosh. I just can't even, it just makes me so sad because I just see the struggle. I mean, I don't want to say I'm an empath. I'm definitely an intuitive. I mean, God has hooked me up. I can see people's inner childs. I can read people's thoughts before they say them. I, by the grace of the Holy Spirit, often say exactly what that person needs to hear when I'm hardly informed, etc., etc. But sometimes it is a lot when I'm reading the request of the prayer warriors and over 1.5 million people calling out to God. When I'm in my weight support groups and just hear the struggle again and again, I mean, I just pray and pray, but I hurt for them too. And it's just a reminder to me, but it's a fine line. I have to be really careful because I can be, it's like a two-sided coin. I can accidentally flip to my sicker self in a moment's notice. But mostly, I've been very blessed, and I feel like I've found the right way, and I rejoice to no end in high-carb, low-fat, raw vegan, and the communities that I found, like Tanny Raw Reset, so great. Coming up again, get to TannyRaw.com, man. You guys have 300 bones. It's the best $300 you'll ever invest in yourself. 28 days and 35 hours of live content and a private support group. Hello. Go learn about health. It's amazing. So there's many out there. A couple of my favorite, the plant-based, a whole food plant-based group on Facebook. I love that group. Forks Over Knives, a really good one. The Whole Food Plant-Based Cooking Show, such a good one if you're into cooking. There's so many. But this is all real for me, I'm super familiar, and I will continue to pray for people making that decision, pondering that decision. Those who did not recover, I'll continue to pray. All right, my friends, as always, like if you like, join us if you haven't, subscribe. Thank you so much for stopping by JBV and just rolling with me on whatever topic of the day I happen to come up with. You're a blessing to me. So until we talk again, we're here. We have a chance to make best choices, accepting of ourselves, eating by God's grace, and therefore we are blessed.